Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. We have Dave Cool here, and if you get an email from him, it says, yes, that's really my name. Really is his name, which is perfect because he's super cool, and he is here from Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle is a website platform that provides really awesome websites for musicians specifically. I mean, you can use them, the templates, even if you're not a musician, but they are sort of plug and play, drag and drop, ready to go for musicians. So I thought this would be a really great interview to have, not just to talk about Bandzoogle and what they offer, which is just a tiny little, we'll definitely get into that, but also Dave's got a marketing eye that is really, really valuable. And us as musicians, we want to just spend all our time creating, but to have to be really plugged into what it takes to market yourself so that your music and your web, everything's in line. The experience of what you're doing is all in line. Dave's got that super dialed in. So today on this chat, we've got Favor Renee and Scott Tran from our last MX4 course, and we've got Ethan and Greg from the new MX4. So we've got a little crossover here. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask Dave a couple questions about sort of how he got to where he is now, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys, you singer, songwriters, producers, artists, musicians, to ask your questions of Dave. And then towards the end, we'll do a laser round if there's anything that I think that we still need to hear. So. Thank you for all taking the time to be on this call, and especially Dave. I know you're super busy, and this is really great. So, welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So I was going to ask you. I mean, you haven't been at Bandzoogle forever. You've had a big career leading up to where you are now in Bandzoogle. So I wanted to hear a couple of what are some highlights or milestones that got you to where you are today. Yeah, let's hear your sort of story.
Well, like a lot of people who work in the music industry, I started off as a musician. So when I was a kid, my dad needed a drummer for his rock and roll cover band and trained me like a little monkey to play drums and keep a beat. And I started at like 3 or 4 years old and played in that band until I was a teenager and rebelled and wanted to play my own music. So I played in various punk rock and hardcore bands up here in Montreal. Well, I'm in Toronto right now, but up in Montreal, which is not too far away. And signed record deals, toured, did that whole thing. And then just, too many years of performing very loudly without earplugs. My right ear is basically just there for show. It doesn't do very much anymore. So I lost a lot of hearing, severe tinnitus, oversensitivity to sound, all that fun stuff. So I decided I wanted to keep my left ear in okay shape. So I switched over to the business side of things and started my own label, signed one artist in Montreal, launched his solo career, and he's now a pretty big name up in Canada. And the second project for that label was going to be a compilation CD. And this was at a time, this is dating myself a little bit, but this is at a time when CD-ROM extras were a big deal. So I was going to record some interviews to have a little 5-minute video on this compilation CD of all my favorite independent artists. And we started doing the interviews. It was myself and a high school friend of mine who was a professional cameraman, and realized we were getting some really interesting stuff out of these interviews. So we decided to just focus on that, and it turned into being a full-length documentary film with a CD compilation as a bonus. The film was called What is Indie? A Look into the World of Independent Musicians. It had the founder of CD Baby, Derek Sivers, the founder of Sonic Vids, Panos Panay, and a bunch of artists and other industry people. This is 10 years ago now. So this is right when the industry is really shifting to benefit do-it-yourself artists. So it sort of captured a moment in time in the industry, and sort of a lot of people know me from that to this day. I still get emailed about that film every week. It screened all over the world. Was featured on CNN, Newsweek magazine, every Canadian media outlet possible. It just caught on to a trend that was going on, a total happy accident. And from there, I was a program director at a couple of venues up in Montreal. I really love folk music, singer-songwriters, and I programmed a small venue, indoor venue and a large outdoor venue, where we did festivals and all sorts of fun stuff. So I booked probably over 500 shows while I was a venue booker. And left that job because I wanted to do other things, and wrote an ebook called Attending Music Conferences 101 with advice for musicians attending music conferences. And it's how I got my job at Bandzoogle, because their CEO at the time was at a conference and mentioned to a mutual industry friend that he wanted to write a blog post about music conferences. And she was like, "Hey, dummy, there's a guy in your hometown who just wrote a free 50-page ebook on that subject. You might want to talk to him." And I met with their CEO, and the rest is history. I've been there for 5 years, started off blogging for them, and now I'm the director of artist and industry relations, so handling all the business partnerships and outreach to the musician community. So that is me.
Yeah. No, awesome. That I always like hearing people's stories. Like, it's never what you think it's going to be, and then it always ends up being better, different. I don't know. It's sort of where you land is interesting, and not to say that you're now landed for the rest of your life, but it's cool to hear that, and it's inspiring that it's like, oh yeah, there's life outside like whatever it is we think we have to be doing or whatnot. So, and that's something that we're always all exploring. I just want to, before I open the floor to everyone else, to ask you some questions about just websites and marketing and whatever is relevant to them, knowing who you are. So basically, I wanted you to expand on something that you said 10 years ago when this documentary came out. You said right when the times were changing to benefit the DIY artist. So that's really interesting, because you hear so much grumbling right now that there's no benefits right now for like the big companies, and Spotify and Pandora are paying us 0 cents for whatever. But I want to hear what your take is on that, because I'm like, oh, that sounds so hopeful. Let's hear what that means to you.
It was a hopeful film. It became sort of a rallying cry for the independent musician community at the time. And, looking back, I think there was so a lot of the challenges that at the time or just before that time were production and distribution. So, with technology, all of a sudden you could produce an album in your home, and you could use services like TuneCore, CD Baby, whatever, to distribute your music globally. And then, the film came out pre-social media. Like MySpace was just launching. And now with social media, you have access to a global audience of potential fans. But what I didn't at the time, and what I think a lot of people didn't foresee, was that it's great that those challenges sort of were met with all of these tools. But now the biggest challenge for musicians is how to stand out, because all musicians have access to those tools and access to the internet. So now, how many, if you're on Twitter or Facebook every day, I get invited to tons of gigs. I see tons of musicians talking about their shows, about their new album, tour, whatever. And so the biggest challenge now is for fan attention, and how to gain fan attention and keep that attention in a world that's really just fragmented, and people are doing their own thing and paying attention to other films, video games, whatever. And every, you mentioned streaming services, every song ever recorded in history. So why should they listen to your music? It's an interesting time that is both exciting and really challenging. So
cool. No, that's great. There's definitely benefits to all the access and tools that we have now on the internet. And then there's the big challenge, which is how do you separate yourself? How do you show that you're a professional, which is a perfect lead into this whole conversation. So, I could ask you a million questions, but I'm going to open it up to you guys. Let's see. I'm just going to unmute you guys one at a time. Everyone's sort of prepped and looked up Bandzoogle and who you are and everything. So I just want to see, Greg, do you have a question for Dave? We'll go around in a circle, ask one question each, and then we'll see how much time we have and keep going, in the round here. So I'm going to start with Greg. Make sure you unmute yourself, you guys, as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't have one at the moment. I'm still kind of formulating one. So if I could pass and come back around,
Sure.
would that be all right?
Awesome. All right. I'm going to meet you again, and we'll go to Ethan.
I guess when you first started actually like pursuing music, did you have any idea that this is where you would end up?
Not at all. No, I thought I was going to be a touring musician my whole life. So that was the plan. That's all I ever knew. I grew up in a household where there was music daily, and there was a big family jam session every Saturday. So that had been going on since before I was born. So I just thought I was going to keep playing music my whole life. So when I was in my early 20s and that ended because of health reasons, it was a big life change. But I still loved music, so I stuck with it, and I've been working in the industry full time now for about almost 15 years, and loving it. I mean, it's I've landed at a job that is the best. It doesn't feel like a job. I love it. It's not where I thought I was going to end up, but life is good, and I'm still working with musicians and involved in the music industry, so I have really no complaints. So, but yeah, life is full of surprises.
Awesome. Yeah, good question, Ethan. It's always interesting to hear that. Let's go with, I'll do Scott and then Favor, you're up, and then we'll go back to Greg. So Scott, do you have any questions for Dave?
Yeah, well, first, thanks, Dave. Really appreciate you being on the call. Also, really like Bandzoogle. I've been using it for about a month. I was on WordPress prior to that, and this definitely shifted my presence online into high gear, which I really appreciate. And I'm really liking the new drag and drop tools. Mm-hmm. It just looks really great. I still haven't quite figured out how to make a separate videos tab, but I probably can do that on my own end in my own time. One question I do have is sort of like, you have some great tools on Bandzoogle. You have like the analytics that you can use. You have also like just some various like being able to, I guess it's all analytics. I guess my question is, how do you I feel like I have the website. I feel like I have a social presence. What do you recommend in terms of being able to drive up sort of traffic and interest? Like, what sorts of things do you see people doing to sort of get people to their websites, starting to engage more, starting to really get on board with the music? What sorts of things would you recommend for an artist that's sort of just getting started?
Right. Well, first of all, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying Bandzoogle so far. And in terms of adding a page, it's super simple. Our best features are support team. They're all musicians themselves. You just click on the help tab, and they're online 7 days a week, and they can walk you through anything you need. But to the larger question, yeah, I wrote a whole blog series on that topic. It's a huge, I give hour-and-a-half workshops on that question. We see your website as kind of your hub on the internet, and your spokes are everything else. So it's like a hub and spokes approach. So you have your website hub, and then you have all your social media spokes. And you want to drive people to your website hub because what exactly you just said is data. Collecting that data, knowing where people are from, where they came from, how they landed on your site, getting them signed up to your mailing list, which is included in Bandzoogle. So having that email address you can keep in touch with fans over the long term is super valuable. It sounds a bit like an old school marketing technique, but in the age of social media, email has become even more important because Facebook's basically turned into pay to play to reach your fans, and Twitter, tweets last, an hour maybe. So you never know if you're reaching your fans. Email is still the most reliable way to do that. So if you're getting people on your website, collecting emails, that's super, super important. You should start on that as early as possible. And the way to drive people to your website is with content. So it's really, in business, it's content marketing. For musicians, it's really just sharing your experience of being an artist. And so blogging, adding new music, adding new videos, and just seeding out that content to your social media channels and linking back to your website for people to get the full experience. And so that way you get them on your website on your own terms without 1,000 links trying to take them somewhere else, and driving them to YouTube where they're going to be watching crazy cat videos. Like you want to keep people on a place on the internet that you control the experience and that you can collect that valuable data. So in a nutshell, that's what I would say. If you email me, my email address is dcool @bandzoogle.com, and I can send you a link to those blog posts.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was like, he's asking, how do you market your website? That's like the biggest question. No, but it was that. I mean, that was a great answer. And I mean, throughout our MX4 course, which lasts 6 weeks, we've had calls where he was like, I think I might throw my computer out the window because of WordPress. Like, what else can I do? And I'm like, just try Bandzoogle. Just take a step away. I know you're starting from scratch. Just try it. See if you want to throw your computer out less. So we were really happy we save lives at Bandzoogle. That can be your
I
new
love hearing that.
tagline.
There's Chandler Coyle, who's a professor for Berkeley Online, has part of his digital marketing course where they have to build a website. And he said before suggesting Bandzoogle, most students went with WordPress, and you'd have to answer tons of questions on setting up a host, getting your domain, and how do you, hack into the code to customize things. So once he started recommending Bandzoogle, he doesn't hear from students, and they build awesome looking websites and show them when they're done. So he's like, thank you guys. This is making my life a lot easier. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, no, I was getting a little scared for Scott and for his computer. Really scared for the health of his computer. So that all worked out well. No, that was a really great question. And it's funny because, you're talking about content being the thing that drives people to your website. And one of the things there's so many different theories out there, but a really, really simple one that I sort of implement in this course and I do myself is the third rule. So a third of your content is just the experience of being an artist. That Instagram is great for that. This is, even if it's like, this is what I ate while on the road, even if it has nothing to do with being on the road, just sort of an insight into your life, period. And then there's a third of content that you post that's other people's content. Like, hey, my friend did this video, check this out. So it shows your fans that this isn't just about you. It's about your love for music and that there's other good stuff out there. And it sort of creates this good vibe. And then you also don't have to curate. You don't have to create content. You just curate it. So once a week, I spend about 15 minutes finding cool articles, cool videos of people. And then I schedule, 4 or 5 posts a week that are other people's stuff. And then the last third, and some people think that this should be even smaller, depends on where you are, what you're doing in your career. But then the last third is more promotional, direct requests of your fans. Come join my mailing list, come do this. And that may be a lot smaller. If you've got a big show coming up, there might be more of that. So you sort of play with those numbers, but, creating content, and if you're really busy, you don't have to create your own content. There's so much out there, and just being a source and like having your fans know that you've got your thumb on the pulse of like what's cool, and you've got cool musician friends. And, that's something we do in the course is cross promote each other, because everyone's up to something cool, even if you don't necessarily, you're not in that genre or whatever. So I think that's a great way to drive people back to just you as a person, which in this day and age, it's not just about the music. It is about the website and the experience. Dave, you use that word experience so much, and I love that. So
it's a great quote. I was in New York last week for a bunch of meetings, and I met with the founder of Pledge Music, Benji Rogers, who's one of the brightest guys in the industry, one of my favorite human beings. And we had lunch, and I tweeted this quote the other day. He said, bands are much more interesting when making an album than when selling an album.
Yep.
Like that experience, that window into the creative cycle, like fans love that. Like for musicians, like we've been in studios a bunch of times. For us, it's kind of not boring, but it's like we know it. We know what that's like.
Yeah.
But for people who aren't involved in the industry, like that stuff is really exciting and interesting. So my very first blog post actually for Bandzoogle was don't shut out your fans. And it was about letting them into the creative process while you're in studio or while you're on tour. Like that stuff is really fun for outsiders to, to be able to see.
That's awesome. Ethan, this is totally for you. Ethan's in the middle of, writing a new record, and I've heard a little bit of I don't know what to post because I don't have any music released yet, but you're in the process and getting, even just saying that, like, I feel like I have nothing to post, but oh wait, I'm actually like doing this cool thing, and I'm, wrote this lyric, and there's so much like micro content almost, and in your own experience. And I love that quote from Benji Rogers, that it's Benji Rogers, right? Yeah. It's not about the music, it's the process. It's totally process. So starting to get that and be like, oh, I do have something to share, even though this isn't released yet. So sorry, I'm pointing on Ethan because we had this conversation last night about this. So awesome. Cool. Scott, thanks for that, that question spurring off into this discussion. So I am now, let's see if Favor is not stuck in traffic and able to ask her question from the phone. Favor, do you have a question for Dave?
I do. My question is not of a technical nature. it's in reference to something that was stated earlier, and pardon me if I'm being redundant. I don't believe I missed it, but I believe you mentioned that have been invited to numerous events by various artists over the years, and there are things that you look for that make artists stand out. I'd like to know what types of things you consider noteworthy, what kinds of things in performance or presentation or anything having to do with getting to the public makes an artist stand out.
Great question. Really, really great question. That's something we're all asking. What makes an artist stand out in this day and age of everyone's there? Really great. Thanks, Faber.
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, there's not a single answer for each artist. It's really a unique, and I think this probably ties into what you guys discuss in this course, but you really have to figure out who you are as an artist and make sure that your personality shines, even when you're promoting a show. It can't be just a dry, like, come to my show, it's $10. Like, okay. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So, I really like a personal touch. Again, I may be different than a lot of people just because I know more musicians than the average person does. But if I'm sitting at home on a Friday and I get 3 invites to shows that night, and one of them makes me laugh, and that person then follows up with a personal message that's unique to me, and I know it's not a form letter, and that they're personally inviting me to their show, that means a lot. Now, you can't do that, if you're starting to play theaters and larger venues, that's going to be a lot harder to do. But when you're starting out, reaching out to individual fans of your music and sending them a personal invite, I think it definitely works on me, and I know it works on other people. But yeah, just making sure that your personality comes through. And if you're funny, then that, if you're a metal band, I don't know, like there's different approaches depending on your genre and your brand, but just making sure that it's not a strict sales pitch, that there's some angle, something interesting, something different. Why should people, if they have 5 options of things to do that night, including staying home and watching Netflix, why should they why should they go out, find parking, pay $10, $20 and get home late? Probably, why should they do that? You really have to sit back and think about the person who's going to be coming to your show and giving them as much incentive as possible to go out and I know that's not a super clear answer, but it's a huge challenge, and it is really unique to each individual artist, depending on the type of show you're playing and what other artists are performing, where exactly, what genre you're in, if you're playing a hometown show versus an out-of-town show, if you're touring, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of variables.
I think you just said something that's really great. I think, especially if you're performing a lot, you kind of don't want to use the same thing every time, even if it's your personality coming through. But saying this venue is really cool because they have this awesome velvet thing that if you get there early, you might be able to sit in the velvet booth thingy majiggy, or is it that you're opening for this person and you've been such a fan of that artist? Here's a couple links to their songs. Here's a video, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's not about you. It's about the rest of the bill. Or maybe it's about that there's free parking, or like something. Each show's got something else. And like your set may be the same every single show, and your music and your personality. But if the way you're sharing about the unique things and making it special, this is not just another one of those, come to my show, it's $10. Sort of make a list. What are the things that are unique about this venue, this bill, the timing, it's raining tonight. Like, then you can do like, there's an awning that goes from the parking to, it's so easy. Just, get in people's world so that you can address their concern right away. It's Friday night and it's raining. I want to watch Netflix. So how do you convince them that they shouldn't? So you're getting in their world. And, you guys, we've talked about how do you create an opportunity for someone else so that they get something out of it. And they're like, oh yeah, I have to do that. I don't want to miss out on that. And FOMO, right? That's the thing that's like the hot marketing buzzword right now, fear of missing out. So everyone else is going, why aren't you going?
Exactly. Yeah. Touching on a point you just made, when I was programming at a small indoor venue, It was actually at a craft brewery. They were very heavily involved in sponsoring of the arts, and I managed that portfolio for them as well. So they sponsored every major music festival and lots of tours for artists. And we started a grant program for musicians. But they hired me specifically to program that venue at first, and it was out of the way. There was no public transportation nearby. In a rough part of Montreal. So it was really challenging to get people to come to the venue, but we focused on the positive, which were free parking, plenty of free parking, a small, beautiful, intimate room with great acoustics, and the freshest beer you will ever drink because it's coming straight from the brewery. So, we focused on that and ran it quite successfully for 4 years. Some shows were better than others, but the artists that really stressed, the benefits of coming to, and a lot of times there would be an artist that would usually play a bigger venue that would invite fans to come to a smaller setting, a more intimate setting, that kind of thing, using that angle. So yeah, using whatever possible angle, even venue related, and all the logistical stuff. If they have great food or a great wine list or, whatever. That all can help get someone off the couch.
Awesome. Favor, that's an awesome question. Thank you so much. Cool. Greg, can we come back to you? Has anything brewed since we've started talking here?
More of a technical question, but I'm noticing that obviously your websites have calendars, and I'm wondering if your calendars, does Bandzoogle interface with third-party calendars in particular? I'm thinking of Google Calendar.
Great question. At the moment, it does not interface with Google Calendar. We have an integration with Bands in Town. So if you're entering your dates there, you can add that feature and it automatically populates into our calendar. So no, it doesn't integrate with Google Calendar. It's one of those things on our list. Not sure when that will happen, but we actually just added built-in ticketing this week, which is really exciting. So commission-free ticketing for artists playing general admission shows. So that all connects through the events feature. It has a lot of functionality, age ranges and custom images, now ticket sales. But yeah, the integration with Google Calendar is something that comes up on a fairly regular basis. We know that a lot of musicians want, use Google Calendar and want to just be able to send that info to our events feature, so it's on the list.
A workaround that I've done in the past before I got on board with Bands in Town, which, by the way, if you guys are not on Bands in Town, it's really great. You put your info in once, you can post it to Facebook, you can have a tab there, people can request you, they can follow you, so when you post a new show, they know automatically. So I would check that out, and it definitely integrates with all the different platforms that you would be using, including your Bandzoogle site, obviously. But you can put an HTML block on your Bandzoogle page, right, Dave? So you can grab the embed code from your Google Calendar, and that's a workaround that I believe still works. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm making this up.
It should work, yeah. It doesn't look the greatest,
right?
Always.
Yeah.
And with our Bands in 10 integration, I should mention, they have a widget, Bands in 10 widget, but ours is actually a full integration. So it's just a one-click thing. You connect your profile, and it's not an HTML widget. You don't have to do any coding. It's just we worked with them on doing a full integration. I actually saw them last week in New York as well, and great people, great service. I really like what they're doing. I think they're really helping connecting musicians with their fans, and there's a lot you can do with that platform. And they have some exciting stuff coming up that's going to open up more data for musicians who are using it. So definitely to watch out for.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to stop there today. Stay tuned for next week where we continue to talk to Dave about all things branding and marketing around your website. Great stuff. Don't want to miss this one. Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast has been created by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Ock. You can find all the songs, plus more information on my music career at cherylbe.com. If you want to be one of the reasons I can keep this podcast and my blog Living on Gigging going, then head to patreon.com/CBE Music. There, you can contribute $1, $2, $5 for the creation of each of these free musician resources. Together, we can keep them coming and inspire other creative people to do what they love and do it well. Again, that's patreon.com/CBE Music. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.